Well, the record-breaking lake effect snows that began last Friday, this past Friday, right after Thanksgiving, is finishing up its third day and about to go into its fourth day. Some of the amounts are mind-blowing, and there's still more to come. So we'll be talking about that. You could go watch it, by the way, on the Buffalo Bills game on NBC, but then you'll miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We tried to talk them into delaying their show, but the football game, but they weren't having it. Uh, by the way, tomorrow is Cyber Monday, and you might be going Christmas shopping. Well, use the referral link on Amazon that's pinned to the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this podcast. Because if you do, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by doing your shopping on Amazon, and Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin just out of their pocket and not out of yours. So uh, thank you for at least thinking about supporting the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Okay, so I'm a little, I can just tell you right off the bat because you can tell I'm having trouble completing sentences. I'm not feeling well tonight, so I'm going to try to tough it out. Uh, Joe, I hope your Thanksgiving was a good one.
It was a unique one for us. It was our first Thanksgiving with our grandchild, who will be turning 10 tomorrow, 10 months, that is. And I've seen already on the chat board some people asking if they turn on the football game, will it be snowing there? Now, if you're in Buffalo proper, if you're in downtown Buffalo, the snow has ended or there is no snow falling. But looking at the radar, it appears that areas south of Buffalo and Orchard Park, which is where the football stadium happens to be, is located right along, I believe, US Route 20A, and that seems to be the boundary line. That seems to be if you're anywhere north of 20A, you're probably seeing very little snow, but along and south of 20A, that's where it is continuing to snow, and in some cases snow very hard. Joe, I got a chance on one of the evening newscasts, I think it was on ABC, showing the playing field was completely snow covered. The seats were snow covered. They've hired the Buffalo Mafia, as they call it, or the Buffalo Bills Mafia, people who are going to get paid $20 an hour and also be fed very nicely with lots of warm beverages and warm food. All they have to do is just take one of the shovels that the Bills are offering, go out there and shovel till your legs fall off or whatever, to try to get the field in shape. And it'll be interesting to see how the game progresses and what happens with that game tonight in Orchard Park when the Bills play in about, I guess, about a half an hour from now.
Yeah, it was had it on a couple of minutes ago in the pregame. It was snowing lightly, and they said they had about 2 feet, you know, that they were able to clear out. So uh, they're going to play this game, and then there's stuff on the radar, so it probably will be coming in at some point. And it's temperatures are in the 20s. There's a 20-mile-an-hour wind. Some of the numbers that have been coming out, though, as far as the total accumulations that have occurred, have been mind blowing. I think in Erie County in Pennsylvania, there's areas that have gotten 50 inches plus. I saw Barnes Corners overnight was up to 55. Barnes
Wow.
Corners, New York, was up to 55. I think Watertown, I think it was in the mid 40s as far as total snowfall, still has another 36 or so hours to go, and then it's going to take a short pause because we've got a weather system that's coming, and the wind is going to turn south and then turn back to the northwest for later Wednesday night and Thursday and into Friday. So there's going to be more lake effect there going on this week. It might some of the areas may change. The second go around may be more Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, as opposed to where it's been, which has been south and west of Buffalo, down into northeast. By the way, northeast Ohio also getting some crazy numbers in Ashtabula County. I saw some big numbers there in the 3 foot plus range. earlier. So I mean, this has been a really impressive lake effect snow outbreak.
Frank Scalera says we should all take a road trip. He said, I'd love to see lake effect snowstorm. That would be very nice, except the problem, Frank, is that after the snow is ended, or at least petered out, your next problem is getting out and getting back to the airport or getting back on the main roadway to come home. It sometimes can get very difficult, even for places that are used to this, to get through 2 and 3 and 4 feet of snow. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to watch, snow coming down at the rate of 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 inches per hour, hour after hour
Hour
after.
after hour. I will
Yeah,
tell. I mentioned this on Wednesday, and I'll go at it again. The warm lake waters, because the water temperatures in the lakes are running well above normal. Excuse me, had to help the cause here with as far as excess moisture is concerned. I mean, you're talking water temperatures that were, maybe several degrees or more above average. It's been a very obviously, it's no shock to anyone. It's been a very warm fall up until a couple of weeks ago. We were still seeing temperatures getting up into the 60s and 70s. That we're seeing some of these crazy amounts, it really should not be a surprise. And also, I just want to mention, I don't understand. I don't know if you saw Joe, some of the pictures that were coming. I saw some stuff coming out of New York DOT, where all these cars were and trucks were sitting on one of the interstates, not moving at all. I mean, they've just been sitting there for hours and hours while all the snow comes down. So you have that going on, and at the same time, you had the Weather Service offices in Buffalo, in Cleveland, putting out lake effect snow warnings 3 days in advance. I mean, did anybody not hear about this? I mean, they had the winter storm watches up 4 days in advance, and they went to a lake effect snow warning 3 days before the snow was going to start. How can anybody not know that there was going to be a problem from Friday through this weekend and into next week? It's
and I'm sure that
mind-boggling to me.
And I'm sure there's some politician out there looking at all of this and saying it's the weatherman's fault. We didn't get any warning about this. We weren't told. And if you think I'm stretching exaggerating, I think it was a year or two ago where we had just that situation. That I think it was up in Maine, where there was some politician who was complaining bitterly about the lack of any warning. And meanwhile,
The
there
governor.
and then the governor, and meanwhile, there had been, how many different advisories and watches and warnings that have been put out by the Portland Weather Service and the Caribou Weather Service. I mean, it was crazy. But that's what they all fall back on. These politicians, they always and they use the same two words: fake news. Oh well, they're saying it's going to snow, but it can never snow like what they're saying. I mean, it's impossible. And then it goes ahead and does it, and then they have to point fingers at somebody to, you know, justify their
Well,
ways.
they're going to lose the Weather Service went after the governor of Maine when that happened. So, that pretty much shifted the whole tone of the conversation because they were on top of everything that happened that with respect to that was all rain flooding, correct? If I remember
Right,
correctly.
right.
And, the same thing has happened in prior lake effect snow events, including the one from I never ever snowed in the Western New York the way it snowed back in the day. Whatever it is that certain New York governor used to say. We never had storms like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I mean they're going to get hung out to dry because the proof is there. The warnings were. I just don't understand. Uh, because it's not like the news wasn't out there. It's not like it wasn't over posted on social media a million times by every weather weenie out there. I don't get it. I guess I never will. And by the
Yeah.
way, Jess Harden, I appreciate you asking me the questions about, and I keep saying this again, but it doesn't seem to sink in. I have no idea. Joe doesn't have any idea. Neither of us have any idea what the winter's going to be like and how much snow's going to fall in the great state of Alabama. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know. Okay, I have no idea. Okay. If you ask James Spann, I'm sure he'll tell you the same thing. He doesn't know. He has no idea. If you ask any one of a number of forecasters, I mean, you want validation. I get that. Okay. You really want validation because you're a snow freak. I got it. But I can't, I don't, there's nothing I can say. If it makes you feel better, it's going to snow nonstop in the state of Alabama from Christmas to Easter. Okay. Just kind of leave it at that. This is what happens when I don't feel well. I get touchy. Okay, let's run to the watches and warnings here. And yes, we have what's going on in the lake effect areas in upstate New York and in Pennsylvania, northeast and east Ohio, and also in western Michigan and on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But this is highly localized. So you don't have to adventure too far where you're not seeing much of anything at all. So the rest of the country is actually fairly quiet. Much of the eastern United States and the deep south, very cold, uh, with temperatures that are going to drop down, might get down close to 20 or even the teens tonight, up by me here in North Georgia. But other than that, it actually the weather around the country is pretty much on the quiet side. And if we look at the satellite loop, uh, not much has changed. Since Friday. And we've got this low that's been sitting in eastern Canada for about 3 days now, the upper low as well. And you get these, the flow is northwest off Lake Superior, so that takes care of the upper peninsula. It's also northwest off of Lake Michigan, which gets western Michigan, where you've got winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. And then we've got the west to west southwest wind across Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, which is getting northeast Ohio to southwestern New York, as well as north central New York getting pounded. Watertown's got, I think they were up to 45 inches there in Watertown. The whole setup here in the eastern part of the United States is was perfect here for a big lake effect snow event. And now there's no big storm systems around. It's actually pretty quiet.
And you could, as you were just looking at the national map there, and you're right. The only place really that is getting all the action and is making national headlines is those few counties on the lee of the Lake Ontario and Lake Erie getting hammered with all of that snow. But meanwhile, everybody else, for the most part, is enjoying a fairly quiet end of Thanksgiving holiday weekend. No real weather problems, again, except if you happen to live in Buffalo or Rochester or Watertown, New York, or Barnes Corners, where again they're getting blitzed with all of that snow.
By the way, just as a heads up for those of you, if you go to the local weather service offices and you pull up the public information statements, you can get. So you want to go to Cleveland, you want to go to the Buffalo office, uh, but when you do that, each weather service office is counting these numbers differently. The Buffalo office is showing you storm totals from day from the start. So, and when depending on what time of day they issued the public information statement, it may have a lot of stations on it, or it might not. So you might want to check back. Now, if you look from the Weather Service in Cleveland, for whatever reason, they're deciding to put it just going by whatever falls on a given day. So you have to go back and sort of do your own math. I mean, it really would be nice. I think I don't know about you, Joe. I would rather have the total and not do it. They could certainly want to do it in 24 hours time, but when they put out the public statements, I want to know how much snow have they gotten so far in total, not what they got in the last 6 hours or the last, 18 hours. I want the whole number.
I agree. I agree. It's and again, it depends upon what weather office that you are following. And in fact, I'm looking, Joe, here. I'm looking on my favorite places page. I found it. Okay. I'm gonna send to you, Joe, via Messenger The a great page. This is called the organization page, the National Weather Service organization page, and it is a page that gives you the link to every
Oh
National
yeah,
Weather.
that's the Binghamton site. That's off the Binghamton site.
I don't know if it's off Binghamton. I
Yeah, yeah,
know
it's
that his
on.
organization.
That's where I found it the first time. I actually saved it with a bunch of play. I actually posted the link to it. But go ahead and send it to me because now I can't find the link.
Okay, but basically what it is that you're you go to this page, and you can even get the Facebook page, not the Facebook page. You can even get the pages for other territories of the United States, such as, well, I mean, Puerto Rico, Hawaii. You get the Guam. How would you like to know what the latest forecast is for Guam? Well, you can get it off of this page, and as soon as I get over to send this to Joe, Joe will post it on the chat board, and we'll be able to share it with all of you. I'm going to do that right now. But anyway, that's it's a site that I've looked at and used on other occasions when I want to get uh,
Yeah,
information.
Binghamton had it on there on a special link when we had the big snow a couple of weeks ago, and now I can't find it. But thank
Well,
you.
now
Yeah.
I just sent it to you now on Messenger, so you should be able to see it.
All
And
right, I'm getting it now, and everybody's watching me get it. I'm too out of it today. Uh,
all right, well, as soon as we do this, let's get right into the weather, get through it real fast, and then you can shut down,
oh,
and go to.
here we go. I got it. Okay, so let me post. I'll post a link for everybody. One round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. All right, when it comes up and I get the link, I'll share it. All right, back to, over to the radar, where we've got snow in north central New York. Actually, some heavier bands have moved in. Looks like they're pretty much right over Watertown and Barnes Corners. Also in southwestern New York, south of downtown Buffalo, there's another batch of snow that's come in. Looks mostly to be on the light side. A little bit of a break in northwest PA, and then some streamers, what you get on the Ohio side, and back to about Cleveland. So it's still happening. Still has we have work to do from that respect. There's some heavier snow bands up in north on the upper lower peninsula of Michigan in the northwestern part of that peninsula, and also on the upper peninsula. We're getting stuff going on here coming off Lake Superior, so busy there. There's a little bit of stuff aloft. None of this seems to be reaching the ground. You had a few people talk about some ocean effect that occurred today over parts of Long Island and South Jersey and down over Chesapeake Bay, and you can still actually see some of that happening here. Uh, Even some precip aloft at the Delaware and South Jersey on the radar right now as of what is it, 7:55 p.m. Eastern Time, and a little bit of flurry action across North Carolina as a little disturbance moves eastward.
And speaking of cold, it got down to 22 this morning here in Putnam Valley, and by far and away the coldest weather or coldest morning that we have had so far here locally. And interestingly enough, also at Central Park, the temperature this morning getting down to excuse me, getting down to 27, and that is the coldest that Central Park has recorded on the 1st of December since 2007, when it was 25 degrees. So this is the coldest start to December in almost 20 years, at least at Central Park.
Wow. Brandon Doherty, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight. Most appreciated. Also getting a little bit of snow, by the way, in eastern South Dakota and in eastern North Dakota, again on the light side. Not much of anything happening out in the west. Not much in the land of severe weather. No thunderstorms are forecast tonight. No severe weather in the next 2 days, and no severe weather in the long range. So that was easy enough. And actually, across the U.S., the precip outside of what's going on around the Great Lakes, where you have areas showing an additional half to three-quarters of an inch, or in southwest New York and northwest Pennsylvania, it's three-quarters of an inch to an inch and a half. Much of the country is actually quite dry. Uh, the Gulf Coast is one exception, from Texas to Louisiana over the next 7 days, where we're looking at an inch and a half plus. And the northwestern corner of Washington into British Columbia is the other area where we're seeing some heavy precip of several inches or more. But other than that, we're not going to see a whole lot this week, and that means that the weather
We're not
systems.
going to see a whole lot this week, and that
Oh,
means that the weather systems.
hello, Joe. What are you doing?
Well, people
Yeah.
on the chat board are telling me that my audio is very low, and
Oh,
I thought that perhaps I unhooked my
so
microphone.
you thought perhaps you put my audio on top of mine.
Yeah, well, I saw that, but the only way I could test this out was to just pull out my microphone cord and put it back in. Now, I don't know whether or not that helped and whether or not my sound is better, but that's the best that I can do.
Well,
So,
I turned you higher. Okay.
okay.
I just raised your levels here on my end. So, um, are you, like I guess Renata says you're fine. Okay, that's that. That's all that matters. She says you're fine. You're fine. We do have this cold, this cold high. It's going to take a couple of days for it to make it to the coast, and then we've got a series of divers coming down. So this first one is a wrapped up low that comes down from Lake Winnipeg to near Lake Superior into southeastern Canada, brings some precip Wednesday night into Thursday morning. I'm thinking that this is going to be, for the coast anyway, it might be maybe a few snowflakes going to some rain showers. I don't think it's going to amount to very much. Inland areas might have a little bit more in the way of snow, and I guess if you go far enough away from the coast, somebody winds up with a coating to an inch or so. I can't see how you're going to get much more than that. The other thing I would point out is if you notice that it's going to get windy, particularly later Thursday into Friday, and of course, with the way this thing is structured, you got northwest winds that are going to be coming off Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario, which means that the lake effect snow machine gets a second round of juice for Wednesday night, later Wednesday night, Thursday into Thursday night, and early Friday.
And yeah, if you're thinking that maybe I mean up here, I think wet snow maybe a little bit, but that's about it. I don't think right now we need to worry too much or be concerned about any kind of accumulations. Um, I noticed looking at some of the long range projections, but of course you know how accurate they are once you get past 4 or 5 days. But I mean, you want to believe some of them. There might be an ice storm. There might be some more significant snow 10 or 15 days from now. You really just play it by ear, one day at a time.
Right. So after that goes by, there's another diver that comes into the eastern states on Sunday, Saturday night into Sunday afternoon. I think the same thing holds here. This is not as strong as the one for Wednesday into Thursday. I think it's going to be once again probably if some rain showers in the coastal plains, some snow showers inland, doesn't amount to much. You'll notice that actually there is moisture from this second system across the deep south, including me. So maybe I'll get some rain, a cold rain here over this coming weekend, the next weekend, and then that goes out. And then it starts to get a little different where we've got energy in the southern stream. And, depending on what model run you look at, the 12Z run had a very blocky look with higher pressures across eastern Canada, and back westward, suppressing everything. The 18Z did not do that. It's an unsuppressed look. You get a low that winds up going up, coming out of the plains and going into Michigan with heavy rain moving up the coast, and this would be around December 11th or 12th. I'm not. I really didn't have a lot of time to go look today in the long range to see what was going on with the upper air. I mean, it was kind of looking a little bit blocky from some of the prior runs that I looked at. and some hints about this in the ensembles, but on the other hand, it is early December, so you got to have it perfect to get snow in the coastal plain in early December. I mean, I just kind of throw back the 12Z run. You can see there's a low that comes out of Arkansas and goes into the Ohio Valley, and then a secondary forms east of North Carolina there, and you got all this snow and freezing rain that comes up the coast for the 10th and the 11th. I don't know if that's going to be the way it looks.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
it's going to have to be perfect. You're going to have not only enough of a negative NAO in play, the North Atlantic Oscillation, but you got to have enough ridging in the west. And I don't know that that's going to be the case, at least from this early, vantage point. I'm sure we're going to see, you know, models changing quite a bit during this week regarding this particular system.
uh, well, we'll see.
That's what we do, Joe. This is what we live for. Okay.
Absolutely.
And overall, by the way, in terms of the overall pattern, I'm just kind of looking at the 500 just really, really quickly. I mean, there's been a tendency for troughs to want to come back into the eastern part of the United States. Uh, the 18Z, or is that the 12? The 12 wants to have a ridge along the East Coast by the middle of December. So there's that. And let's see, on the 18Z, it's been throwing these hiccups from certain runs where it does this. And I'm like, the 18Z, I mean, it's got a ridge off, in the Northeast Gulf to off the southeast coast of the United States, but it's on the flattish side. Uh, that's kind of not. It's not unusual to see some volatility here. Just even though we seem to have we're in this stretch right now of sustained cold that's going to last through all of this week and probably into the start of next week. So if it were to change for a short period of time, I don't think it would be a big shock to anybody. The question is going to be, and I think Joe, you will agree with this because we've seen this often enough where the pattern does its, the flip and lock at the mid to latter part of December, and then that's the primary pattern that lasts for like 6 weeks to 2 months. Uh, I I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this. Um, so it's. I think if you're a cold weather and a winter weather lover, you have to be encouraged by seeing cold like this at the end of November to beginning of December. On the other hand, it's absolutely no guarantee that that's a harbinger of what the whole winter is going to be like.
No, of course. And again, this is only day one of meteorological winter, December the 1st, the first of the three coldest months of the year. So if you're going to hang your hat on whatever happens over the next few days or even over the next week or two as to for the entire winter season, um, no, I don't think so.
Good. All right, folks. Look, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of out of it. I mean, you could probably hear it in my nose and in my voice. I'm just not feeling well, so I think we're gonna just kind of call it a night here, and we'll be back tomorrow night at what time? We'll be back tomorrow night, Joe.
7:35.
Okay, I took 2 Tylenol, so
Oh,
I'm a little loopy because
yeah, that,
I never take stuff when I'm not feeling well. So you know that if I'm taking stuff, um, it's I really must be hurting.
well, sometimes when I'm hurting, I take one ibuprofen, one Advil PM, and one regular Advil, and that's good enough to knock me out for more than a few hours at night. Sometimes Renato will do the same thing. So we all have these nights, and all I could say to you, Joe, is you had a great holiday with the grandkids, I'm sure, making that wonderful turkey with the bacon on top, and you deserve a rest. So we'll cut it short here, and we'll be all back tomorrow night.
All right, folks, have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.